Hey, folks. T Shank here. We're live today with another Lift Off series. Super pumped to have you, Tyrone Robinson III, on today to talk about systems and processes for your small business or nonprofit organization. So, systems and processes has been on my mind a lot lately because I work with a lot of small businesses. And so do you, Tyrone, right?
That's correct.
Well, tell me a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do at Opportunities to Serve, and then we'll get into the conversation. We'll give people some real life strategies and tactics to think about how to get the right systems and processes in place.
Sure. Since 2013, I've been supporting business owners, helping them fix and save their business or scale and grow their business. The primary orientations that I would take would be operations, strategy, and technology, and more often than not, the collaboration of all three of those things within an organization. Um, I guess generally speaking, the titles that I wear the most would be business consultant. It would be outsourced COO, CEO. It would also be project manager, and probably a few other things, but those would be probably the most three consistent. You could obviously use business strategists in there as well. But as I said, more often than not, I'm seen as a partner without equity in the business. So what you
Mhm.
title that could literally be unique to you, your preference, your business. So I say all that to say I wear many hats, but I really do focus on the areas of operation, strategy, and technology.
'Tis the life of a consultant, right? No.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so kind of a fractional IT operations leadership role, really specific around operations. And I just earlier in the week, I've been thinking about all the hats that I wear and posted something about wearing all the hats. And mine tend to be more around sales and marketing. But as a small business owner, also a lot of time goes into IT and tech stack and process to make
Mhm.
sure everything both internally and externally with clients is running as efficiently as possible. And so you and I had met, by the way, you're joining us from Delaware County, right outside of Philly.
Yes,
Um,
ma'am.
we met, I guess, through a mutual connection on LinkedIn, the way I meet a lot of people. And I thought, oh, cool, let's talk about this. So when you think about, maybe you've got a small business or your nonprofit organization and you're like, I wear a lot of hats, I'm trying to do a lot with a little. What recommendations do you have for people just first starting out to wrap their head around the kinds of tech stack operations and like processes that they need in place in order to scale? Because I think that's one of the biggest things that holds people back is just, I don't know what tech I need. I don't know what process. I don't know how to plug all the things together. And
Hmm.
that prevents a lot of, that creates a lot of inefficiencies and
Sure.
prevents scaling. So, where do you start?
All right. Well, so here's the thing. You want to start with imagining everything in your business can be delegated. So you give yourself an opportunity to figure out exactly where your executive focus is needed at all times. And then you figure out ways to not do as much as possible, rather that's through people or systems and technology. When I work operationally, my focus is on people, processes, systems, and technology. And I believe
Mhm.
all three of those things, if you group them in three categories, um, are really the pillars that hold your business together, or at least keeps it up. So when we talk about people, you really do need to be aware before you make a hire what it is that you need that person to be able to come in and do, what skills they need, like technology they need to be aware of or at least proficient in, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a number of ways to save money on key hiring decisions by doing the due diligence and pulling out all of the things that that person or people may need to be able to do with a high degree of success before you bring them in.
Mhm.
There's also an opportunity to test those people in the actual environment before making that extra hire or that hire. So, as far as people, the recommendation is know who you need, know why you need them, and what they need to do before you hire them, and then give them an opportunity to prove that before bringing them on your team. In terms of process, again, you're thinking with delegation in mind. In this case, you're thinking about if I build this today, what does it prevent me from having to do tomorrow? So
Mm-hmm.
with every process, there's really plenty of opportunity to skip an opportunity to make your process more streamlined or clearer or
Mm-hmm.
whatever the case is. But if you do take every opportunity to assess how well each process is functioning every time that you do it, you're pretty much going to be able to create and complete a seamless opportunity for you and your people to be more successful or efficient. So if you recognize something as simple as customer setting up an appointment, right, that first time you do it, you should be able to say, you know what, this could be easier. This is how. From that standpoint of that customer, how could this experience be easier? And they may say
Mm-hmm.
these four things. Whatever the case is, it's an opportunity for constant feedback and iterative changes over time until that process, no matter what it is, as simple as, again, setting an appointment to whatever else it could be, you really should take those opportunities to assess, recreate if necessary, but always be
Mm-hmm.
open. And then
Mm-hmm.
as far as technology, and we can group IT into there. Again, you really want to understand what functions don't have to be performed by a person. And more often than not, it's quite a bit. So you have a lot of
Mm-hmm.
opportunity. And if you want to think about it, economically, the question to ask yourself is, how do I get the most out of the people that I have by taking as much off of their plate as possible and then reallocating their attention to other areas in the business, or maybe just help saving money and not needing that person for 40 hours. Maybe you only need them for 30, at the
Mm-hmm.
point that we implement strong IT and systems and technology to be able to do some of the things that maybe they were doing manually. Some of those things are sending messages. If you're a heavy communicative business, you're going to be sending things like newsletters. You're going to be sending follow-ups, nurturing campaigns, the whole deal, right? Well, if you have a
Mm-hmm.
CRM system, the CRM system can do that. All you ever need to do is set it up and maintain it. So there are very simple ways to save money, create new objectives without putting more on your people's plate before taking something off, or even just, again, looking at your uh, I guess, life and balance in general. How much do you want to be annoyed or stressed by your business? Because you
Yeah.
don't have to be annoyed or stressed at all. That is absolutely a choice. And it's usually a choice about money and not actually anything else. And so if you could
Mm-hmm.
literally pay, let's just say $10 to fix a problem forever, it'd be worth the $10.
Yeah.
And so more often than not, business owners just need to have that person in their network to say, hey, yeah, that's the right move, or that's the right investment, or maybe I did that at a certain time in my career, or whatever the case is. But it's typically something that's influenced by
Mm-hmm.
other business owners in a similar level that are attempting to scale and grow. And they're saying, hey, you absolutely have to do this in order
Yeah.
to get to where you want to get to.
Yeah, ask around other business owners who you know. Say, what are you doing? What's working for you? And I think there's a place where you can try freemium tools and they can work for you. But then there's a place, like you said, where you just need to spend the $10 or the $20 or whatever it is,
Hmm.
because that next level tool gets you into a better place where you're now not having to be kept up at night because you're
Sure.
trying to be cheap and use the free
Hmm.
tool and it just doesn't quite do it. Can we dig into the difference between tech and IT? Because you talk about technology, you talk about IT. I think a lot of people would think, well, that's all the same.
Hmm.
So, are there differences when you're thinking about your IT infrastructure and your tech? Is
Sure.
it all? I don't know. Get into that for
To
the.
me, IT is a maintenance of the software or systems that you're currently using.
Hmm.
It's more or less about having a partner that can help you continue to mature in the systems efforts that are already on the premises or being created and implemented. Tech
Hmm.
to me is just the assembly of tools that we have to pick from and implement into the business. So IT is supported by tech to me in a way. But
Hmm.
when I'm thinking about it in terms of working with people, no one uses either one of those things. It's more or less, what do we need and how is it going to help my business? We typically don't use categories. It's like, all right, if you have this set of issues, well, guess what? This kind of system takes care of that. So again, in the early
Yeah.
example, if they're having significant troubles with communication, all right, CRM system, to say
Mhm.
consistent with the example. So more often than not, IT is something that we bring in after we already have had a bunch of things set up, and we need, again, maintenance, and to be able to advance in it, rather that be like additional configurations, uh, opportunities with different APIs to be able to get more out of some software or what have you. And then again, tech to me is the solutions that we have to choose from to implement in the business. And
Mhm.
then they would eventually be supported by IT.
Okay. I think that makes sense. I haven't really heard anyone talk about it in that way before, but it makes a lot of sense. I think it's a good distinction to make for people who aren't maybe techies themselves. So,
And
and I
that's more of
also,
a small business application too.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think I really liked what you said about know before you even hire anyone, know what you're gonna delegate to them in the first place. Because a lot of times it's like, oh, I
Hmm.
just need someone, and then you hire them, and
Yeah.
then you're like, wait, I don't want to let any of this go. Right? Like that's a
Hmm.
problem, first off. So like
Hmm.
determine what you are going to let go of before you bring that person on. And you also said something that I like, and I do this too. Give people a chance to prove themselves before you full on hire them. What are your recommendations in how to do that? Because I think it's something a lot of business owners I see don't think about. They just are like, well, I hired this person. Oh, great. Now I have this person. Oh, they didn't work out. Now what do I do? I have this other,
Sure.
thing on my hands. So how do you test people out before you bring them on?
All right, so I'll share my hiring process with you. For many companies across the country, I've hired either everyone in the company down to just a
Mhm.
few people. And it works this way every time. So initially, we'll reach out, we'll do a pre-screen interview. During that pre-screen, we'll be listening and looking for certain things to be communicated that we've already identified as strong attributes, previous experiences, or what have you. From there, the follow up process is a number of assessments that we give to our participants. So, if this is, for instance, a print shop or a sign shop, we want to make sure
Mhm.
you're proficient in Adobe Illustrator, Adobe Photoshop. We want to test your computer literacy. We also want to get an accurate assessment of your workplace profile or behavior. So, we'll probably send a
Mhm.
DISC assessment as well. After that, we're asking people to obviously send this information back so that we can assess it with the notes from our pre-screen. Following that, we'll bring them in for an in-person interview. We'll go through the same process as far as trying to figure out who they are and what they can bring to the table. And then we'll create an opportunity for them to come in at a lower scale and grow to a higher scale based on
Mhm.
environmental opportunities that we create within our shop to be able to test out their proficiencies, their interest level, their energy level,
Mhm.
how well they work with everybody. And that can be anywhere from a week to, up to 30 days or so, just
Mhm.
depending on what environment they're coming into. So I guess what that's saying is there's about 4 rounds that I would
Mhm.
typically use to be able to really make sure that we're bringing the people in that align with what we've captured when we've gone through the initial process of understanding who we need, what we need them to do, and so on.
Mhm. Awesome. So let's talk about common pitfalls that small businesses fall into around their either their tech or their processes with
Uh,
people. What are some things to look out for?
sure. So do it this way. Operationally, when we talk about people, again, not knowing who you need and what you need them to do. When we talk about process, not creating them at all is the most
Mhm.
common pitfall, meaning that business owner knows how to operate and do everything in the business, and they expect their people to somehow pick that out of their brain or be ultra intuitive in a way that does the job without instruction or adequate training. The long story short here is process is almost always overlooked, and it
Mhm.
almost always costs you money and time. So
Mhm.
that pitfall, it could be categorized under a number of things. What I'll say is it's a category you can't afford to overlook. When it
Mhm.
comes to systems and technology, biggest pitfall is not having systems and technology. Even in 2021, there's plenty of businesses that are still not fully digital or giving themselves an opportunity to meet their customers with the the new expectations that they may or may not have after something like 2020, with COVID,
Mhm.
right? So businesses who weren't able to adapt and grow and become virtual essentially became invisible in many industries. Therefore, the opportunity was equal to become virtual and meet your customers and their needs in this new quote unquote new world. So again, there's many companies operating without websites somehow. There's many companies that are keeping paper files for way too long and not
Mhm.
transitioning into digital. There's companies spending countless amounts of dollars and efforts literally from not using the systems and tools that we have available to us, rather that's in a warehouse, something simple as like barcoding, rather that's again in communication, something simple as a CRM, rather that's a business with a number of software solutions. Well, why not build a ERP system and kind of get the most out of everything?
Mhm.
So there's reasonable ways to approach all of these issues. Again, it just kind of comes down to uh, old ways of thinking. So you could have
Mhm.
business owners who, are in a family business, maybe 2, 3 generations, and it's kind of, this is the way it's always been done. You can obviously find that in corporate as well. So it's not really that different. The hierarchy and structure is the only difference there. But the
Mhm.
point is, sometimes business owners have to feel the heat uh, in order to react. And sometimes, again, it's influence from peers or networking partners. But more often than not, that systems and technology issue is just a fear thing. It's fear of
Mhm.
something new. Um, it's not always the investment amount. It's literally, if we do this, we're going to have to literally change and,
Mhm.
acclimate everyone to this new process. And that could be pretty scary for anybody. So those would be the three main areas that people process systems technology that business owners more often than not don't succeed in, at least initially, and sometimes forever until it
Mhm.
catches up. But what I'm speaking about here really just comes down to getting more availability, a better grip on your time, your energy, your resources, a better allotment of your time, energy, and resources. So we're
Yeah.
talking about a way of life. Rather, balance to you means business, family, business, hobby. Whatever that other thing outside of business is always my emphasis, because we do need to be able to recharge and kind of just chill out for a bit to be the best for ourselves and the people we serve, rather that's internal or
Yeah.
external customers. So everything that I think about in terms of operations is literally how can we get time back? How can we save
Mhm.
money? And how can we make everyone's job easier?
Yeah, yeah. No one wants to work all the time. People are gonna get burned out. I work with, people that are like, I'm working all the time, all late at night. And there are
Mhm.
moments where I do dig in and it's like I've got a late night and I'm up until 2 a.m. because I'm fixing a system. Right. And like that moment stinks. But it's always predicated upon the idea that if I just get into this and I get it set up, it's going to suck in the moment, but
Mhm.
it's going to make it easier on an ongoing basis to
Sure.
work normal hours and not feel crushed by your own
100%.
inefficiencies,
Mhm.
So all I can say is like it's worth putting in the time up front to get the systems and process, even if it hurts a little bit at the beginning. And you said, people are resistant to change, right? So if it's the
Mhm.
way it's always been, it's hard. But I
Sure.
think, trying to get over that initial hump, then you'll find, oh wow, this is easier now. Now I don't have to spend
Mhm.
my time doing, these stupid
Yeah.
things anymore. So
For sure. For me, what it provides is a luxury experience. I can kind of
yeah,
work the way I want to when I want to. I'm never staying up till 2 a.m. to do work.
yeah,
And in fact, I really don't work after 5 p.m. Eastern.
yeah,
So, again, you can create your lifestyle based on the
yeah.
things you're willing to implement in your business. there's really no reason to work in addition to what's necessary,
Yep.
outside of not putting the things in place to really mitigate that, but really just create an opportunity for it not to be there. And that's kind of where I get most of my passion from, is literally erasing these issues. It's not necessarily lessening them. We can get rid of a lot of them. It just takes a few simple efforts.
Yeah, yeah, it's the life by design concept, right?
Hmm.
That's been coming up a lot, and it is possible. And I think a lot of people think, "Oh, well, that's just not achievable for me," but it really is if you
Oh, I
put
can
in.
prove it.
It
I
is,
can prove it.
yeah, yeah. And my 2 a.m. stuff, like that's really rare, and that's because there's been a lot that I've been setting up recently. But now
Hmm.
it's like, I think even things like processes around making sure you stand firm with time that you need that's not going to be
Hmm.
available to others, that's going to be available to you to work on these things. So like,
Yeah.
I don't book meetings on Fridays. It's something that I've had this as a rule for a
Hmm.
long time, but I used to break it all the time, and now like, no, I don't break that rule. I don't have meetings on Fridays, and
Nice. That's been the
it's
theme for the last week.
huge.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah,
For
it's
sure. Yeah.
huge.
You have to be
So
willing to set boundaries and create
yeah,
boundaries to get the best out of yourself and others,
yeah,
so in the case
exactly.
where you find yourself constantly multitasking or whatever the case is, it's just as easy to say to that person, let me get to you in this time so that I can give you my attention
Right.
100%. So it's the
Exactly.
same way with how we're fulfilling our work and our duties. Sometimes we do need to shut it down so we can focus.
Yeah. Well, I think too many of us feel like we're forced into multitasking. Multitasking, I've learned, is a total myth. It's nonsense. It's not possible. Being present in the moment is better, but I think we're often forced into feeling like we have to multitask because we don't have the right systems and processes set up that prevent us from being in sometimes 12 hours of Zoom calls all day long, right? Like I hear that
Hmm.
from a lot of people. Literally, they're back to back to back to back to back to back to back, and I've lived this life too. And I think that that causes the multitasking, and then it just is this spiral effect, right?
Hmm.
So protecting your time, spending the time up front to set the right things up front will save you all of this energy down the road. Do
100%.
you have like, I know you work with a lot of different types of businesses and the systems and processes are different for different times, but do you have like a go to, hey, you got to have this, this, and this? You absolutely have to have these 3 to 5 things in terms of the type of technology or system that you need to be effective.
Sure. So a website, if you are big in communications, a CRM system.
Mm-hmm.
If you, depending on the structure of your business, I mean, if you're running accounting and payroll and all these things yourself, then that obviously opens up a bunch of different options. But if you're not, the idea here is to really just set financial uh, goals or objectives, meaning create a systems budget, create an operations
Mm-hmm.
budget, create budgets from within you can stick that you can more or less find the solutions that match that budget versus just exploring solutions because they
Mm-hmm.
sound good. More
Mm-hmm.
often than not, you can find free or low cost solutions to almost everything that would have a longer subscription or a higher cost. It's really about understanding how it applies to your business and your people. But all in all, I think there's just plenty of opportunity to make the right matches and fits. It's all about asking. It's all about research. It's just the regular due diligence. It
Mm-hmm.
really shouldn't be anything too special. And most of these companies are happy to pick up a phone, just give them a call.
Yeah.
They'll do a demo. It's really no huge deal. So it's really just jumping in, getting uncomfortable, and again, trusting the people that you have on your team. So again, if you have an accountant and you are curious about accounting software, guess what? I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
tell you to ask your accountant what their opinion is. I could
Yeah.
say QuickBooks, right?
Yeah.
But it may not be necessary. Who knows? So, again, my point is the people that you pay as experts ask their opinion about systems. More often than not, we're talking about integration qualities and the ability for them to serve you better, possibly, or your ability to translate your information easier. But yeah, as far as systems overall, definitely CRM, definitely a scheduling software. It's like the top two, and then the website's top three. Um, it's just so hard to really pin down a bunch of other ones, but that would be a top three. That would be
Yeah,
across the board.
I think that's smart. I think kind of bonus question. Do you have any opinions on over automating things? Like, as an example, here's
Sure.
one that really bugs me is I use Calendly for scheduling.
Okay.
The ones that I hate are the AI ones that they're like, oh, my AI assistant. I'm like, it's not. And like,
Hmm.
they break all the time. That to me is an example of just an over automation that doesn't actually work that well. Do you have any that you would say? I don't know. Maybe that one just wants me to put makes me poke forks in my eyes and not other people.
Hmm.
But do you have any tips on like how to prevent yourself from over automating
Sure.
some things?
So over automation in my mind occurs at the point that it becomes a distraction or a problem for your customer and or
Mm,
yourself. Um, Many things can and should still be manual. If you,
mm-hmm,
but it's really about the level of customer service and engagement that you're after. There are some industries that aren't necessarily interested in customer service and engagement. Therefore, AI or a bot may be fine. And even though the end user isn't necessarily satisfied, it may not actually matter
mm-hmm,
to the business. But I think, again, over automation is anytime that it subtracts an opportunity for you to grow your business through a relationship.
mm-hmm.
So if in your example, you go to website A and you're met by a bot and you have a poor experience, well, then yes, that was a wasted
Mm-hmm.
opportunity for you to obviously create a relationship and then possibly create business. So again, my answer would be over automation is the point that you are sacrificing some kind of uh, nurturing opportunity or just initial
Mm-hmm.
opportunity to build a real rapport with someone in your business.
Yeah,
Other
I
than
like that.
that, there's not that many things that I would say are over automated.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's what IT is for. So
There you
you
go.
bring in IT for a lot of these things. Again, when we talk about the more advanced systems, there's so many configurations and abilities to really create a unique process and system for the
Mm-hmm.
people you're working with. That you can kind of go from A to Z there. But yeah, it's again all about the customer. At least it is in a service-based business,
Mm-hmm.
and in a small business where you can't afford to miss one person.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that would be my answer. It's just all about the
Yeah.
customer.
Yeah, I love that. I think bots done well can be very good. It's really just those calendar scheduling ones that drive me bonkers.
I hear that.
Any closing tips you have on anything to look out for to avoid or ways to get in touch with you if you've got a small business and you need some help with this
Sure.
stuff?
Sure. Ways to get in touch with me. Website www.opp, the number two s.com. Email is tmrii at opportunities, the number two serve.com. Social media. Let's see if I'm good at this one. Oh, I think it's OPP2S on Instagram and Twitter. And I believe you can find me by my whole name on Facebook, Tyrone M. Robinson III, and LinkedIn. And that should be everything. But as far as tips to take with you, just be mindful. Be mindful of the
Mm,
lifestyle you want to lead. Be mindful of the people that you are ultimately building your business to support. Be mindful of the relationships that you're attempting to grow and build your business after having those considerations, and you should be okay.
all right. I love it. I'll put all your contact info in the comments and people can find it there. We'll make sure we got all the right handles and everything like that. Thank you. This is a good
Thank you.
conversation. I appreciate it. I think a lot of people struggle with this stuff in the small business world or even, like you said, in large corporate offices too. So I think it's So important reminders. And I like how you wrapped it up with a bow with a focus on mindfulness and designing the life you
Hmm.
want with the right
Absolutely.
processes. All right, Tyrone. Hey, thanks everyone for joining. We will see you next time on the next Liftoff series. Have a good one.
Thanks, Taylor.